In a small, quiet town, there lived a man whose name was John, and he lived together with his wife Mary and their 2 young children. And even though their family was filled with love and care, life was never easy for them because John worked in a factory and the money he earned was very small. So the family often struggled to pay their bills, and sometimes they even worried about having enough food on the table. Even with all of these problems, John was known in the town for one very strong thing, and that was his honesty. Because people would say that John never lied, and he always spoke the truth even when it was painful or when it could bring trouble to him. And because of this, people respected him deeply. One sad day, everything changed when the factory where John worked suddenly closed, and all of the workers, including John, lost their jobs. And when John heard the news, his heart was filled with fear, because he did not know how he was going to take care of Mary and the children without the money from his work. That evening, John sat at the dinner table with his family, and he was quiet and worried, and his wife Mary noticed right away that something was wrong. So she asked him in a soft voice, "John, why do you look so worried? What has happened?" John did not want to upset his wife and children, but finally he sighed and spoke the truth, saying, "I lost my job today. The factory is closed." Mary's face showed shock and fear, and she asked, "What are we going to do now? We have bills to pay, and our children need food." John did not have a good answer, but he promised that he would go out the very next day and search for new work. The following morning, John went through the town and asked at many stores and small businesses if they were hiring, but sadly, everyone said no, and John walked with heavy steps, feeling hopeless. As he walked along the street, John suddenly saw something lying on the ground, and when he bent down, he realized it was a wallet, and when he opened it, he saw that it was full of money. And at that moment, John looked around and saw that nobody was there to claim it. For the first time in his life, John felt the strong temptation to lie, because he thought about his family who were hungry and in need, and he felt that the money could help them right away. He carried the wallet home, and when Mary asked where the money had come from, John did not tell the truth. Instead, he said, "I found some extra work today, so I was paid." Mary was happy and relieved, and she did not ask more questions. And John used the money to buy food and to pay the bills. And for a short time, things looked better. But deep inside, John felt guilty. And every night, when he lay down to sleep, he could not rest because his heart was heavy with the lie. A few days later, the local police came to John's house, and they explained that someone had reported losing a wallet with a large amount of money. and the officer asked kindly, "Did you perhaps find anything like this?" John felt his heart beating fast, and he was afraid, and even though he wanted to tell the truth, he was scared to lose the money. So he lied for the second time and said, "No, I did not see any wallet." More days passed, and John tried to forget about what he had done. But then the police returned, and this time they had evidence because someone had seen John pick up the wallet. And the officer asked him in a firm voice, "John, why did you lie to us?" At that moment, John's fear grew stronger, but he knew he could not hide any more. And so, with a shaking voice, he admitted, "Yes, I found the wallet and I took the money. I was desperate to care for my family. I am sorry." The officer looked at him and said, "Lying made the problem worse, John." When John confessed everything to Mary, she felt hurt and disappointed, and she asked, "How could you lie to me and to the children when you always told us that honesty is the most important thing?" John lowered his head and said quietly, "I was afraid. I thought lying would protect us. But instead, I only made the trouble bigger." The children were too young to understand the full story, but they could see sadness in their father's face, and they felt confused because he had always taught them to tell the truth. Yet now he himself had broken his own rule. Soon, John had to stand in front of a judge at court, and with honesty he admitted, "I found the wallet. I kept the money, and then I lied to the police. I am very sorry." The judge looked at him and said, "Lying to the police is serious. John, you could have returned the wallet, but instead you chose dishonesty, and every choice has consequences." John was punished with a fine, and he had to spend some time in jail. And while he was there, Mary worked harder to provide for the children, and the family felt lonely and sad without him. When John finally came home, he felt like a changed man. And he looked at his wife and children and saw clearly how much damage his lies had caused. And he said to them, "I am so sorry. I should never have lied. I thought I was protecting you, but I only hurt you." Mary forgave him, but said firmly, "We love you, John, but we must rebuild the trust, because honesty is more important than anything." John later found a new job, and this time he promised himself and his family that he would always tell the truth, no matter how hard life became. He even went to the man who had lost the wallet and apologized with deep regret. And at first, the man was angry, but then he forgave John, saying, "Everyone makes mistakes, but lying always makes life harder." Years passed, and slowly the wounds in John's family healed. And though they still faced many challenges, John always chose to be honest, and he taught his children the same. One day, his son came home from school and looked worried, and he said, "Dad, I broke a window at school, and I am scared to tell the teacher." John placed his hand on his son's shoulder and said, "I understand you are afraid, but if you hide the truth, it will become worse. Go and tell the teacher, because it is better to face the truth now than to lie and suffer later." The boy listened and followed his father's advice, and John smiled with quiet pride, knowing that even though he had learned his lesson the hard way, he had become a better man and was teaching his children the right path from then on. The family lived with one simple rule, which was never lie. And although life was never perfect and sometimes difficult, they found peace because they always spoke the truth in the town. People began to see John not only as a man who had once made mistakes, but also as a man who had changed. And they respected him as a good neighbor and an honest friend. John's life was not always easy, but it was real and true. And he knew with certainty that no matter what challenges came, he would never lie again. And so, his story became a lesson for his family and for everyone who heard it. Honesty may be hard at times, but lies always bring more pain. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share.